Okay, gentlemen, we can officially start now. Ron's in the room. So, I'm Stacy McCarver, Vice President of the Piedmont chapter, and I want to officially call this January 21st meeting of the Piedmont chapter SAR to order. You will find here that the colors have already been posted. So I would like to ask Chaplain Steve Morrison if he'll provide our invocation.
Please Please. Dear Lord, thank you for gathering us together this morning to enjoy information, education, history, fellowship, and all those good things that go with the Sons of American Revolution Piedmont chapter. We ask your blessings upon each of us who are here and those of our chapter who are not. We ask you to guide us from day to day, and we ask you to help us make good decisions. Dear Lord, thank you, and we appreciate it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. I'd like to ask compatriot Tim Gunn if he'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Well, you know, this is a try.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Tim, if you would continue and lead us in the SAR pledge.
We, descendants of the heroes of the American Revolution, who by their sacrifices established the United States of America, reaffirm our faith in the principles of liberty and our constitutional republic, and solemnly pledge ourselves to defend them against every foe.
First of all, Tim, you'll notice that I didn't introduce you as Sergeant at Arms, so you did that out of the goodness of your heart this morning, so thank you. I do appreciate that. Please be seated. I am excited and pleased to see all of you here this morning. It's great to have such a busy, full room. And I'll be honest and say, I know I don't know every name that goes with each face, and so I'm sure each of you do not either. I would like to ask, maybe if we start over here at this table, if you would, don't even have to stand, but just kind of raise your hand and introduce yourselves so that we can get more familiar with who you are.
Oh, you mean? Oh.
Yeah.
I'm Al Finley, past president of this chapter, and glad to have all these new faces here. So.
Stand up, Al.
Stand up, please.
The respect earned by the audience.
Quality is more important than quantity. Okay? My oldest daughter is maybe 5 foot, and she's talked to us, so, you know, she's sort of powerful. So anyway, she actually believed me when she was little, and I told her that. So. Right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Morning, everybody. I'm Shields Blankenship. Nice to meet you.
Rick the third.
Rick Reese III, editor of the Piper.
He does a great job.
We're back on track this year. COVID's over. We're back on our bi-monthly.
Mr. Reese.
I'm Rick Reese Jr., father of Rick Reese III, past president of the chapter and currently communications director for the chapter. I'm glad to have everybody here. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Stephen Morrison Jr., the chaplain here, and someday I'll bring maybe Stephen Morrison III. I can get him out of the bed. I have no problem myself.
Eric Thorstenberg, I'm secretary of the chapter and also the chancellor. I think I'm the only charter member.
Yeah, charter member here from the beginning.
Next is our...
I'm Hal Coleman, I'm your speaker today. I apparently speak here once every 10 years.
I'm Ron Redner, I'm past president, and I was born at a very
Should we
early
film
age. And, but as time went on, I got
Bob Staff, I think I follow Eric as being probably the oldest member of this chapter. I joined on February
1776.
Mr. Price, thank you for that clarification. We've been looking for that.
Tom?
I'm Tom Harden. I'm a dual member with this chapter. My chapter is Captain John Collins. I'm secretary, webmaster. I'm going to be JROTC, IT committee. I used to be the state historian. Volunteered a couple of things today. I'm doing too much. That's enough.
Yeah, who's the other member?
And now I feel like the oldest member.
We need to get you involved in our chapter.
I already volunteered.
I know.
Tom Price, member.
Rob?
Morning, Rob Uckert, Veterans Committee. Bill Armstrong, and I'm a member as well.
Scott Chapel, member.
Calvin Rose, a guest of Scott Chapel today.
Billy Westerfield, Ron Moser's grandson.
Welcome.
John Wassel, color guard. Greg Benton, color guard.
Jeff Parker, I've been accepted to be a member, but not inducted yet.
All right.
Tim Washington, one of the newer members.
Good. Glenn Kirk, registrar.
Frank Hamilton, also a new member.
Tim Dunn, I got volunteered to be sergeant at arms.
Look at the joy on his face.
Parker Slander, I'm waiting on my application to be approved, hopefully.
George Thurman, passed.
Bill Wass, past president. Good morning. I'm Jamie Ruff. I'm the genealogist for the chapter.
Also involved with Eagle Scouts.
Yeah.
Very much.
Well, it's great to see all of you here this morning. Thank you for being here. Paul, did you have a word of update for us on Bobby Shaw? Who was it?
Bobby Shaw is, on early February, is going to have a hernia operation. And it's painful for him right now. That's why he hasn't been here this meeting and the last meeting. So, early February, he'll get fixed.
Great. Thank you for letting us know. Well, it's time for us to move into the time of our program this morning. Hal introduced himself, but I wanted to give a brief intro. Hal Coleman is a native of Roswell, Georgia, where he still lives with his wife, Lynn. He's been active in the pest control industry for 49 years and is past president of the Georgia Pest Control Association. In 2002, he was inducted into the Atlanta Country Music Hall of Fame. He's been a member of the Rotary Club of Roswell for 23 years. He's a professional speaker, author, small business coach, and sales trainer. Through his company, Coleman Services, Inc., he's taught thousands of small business owners and salespeople how to double, triple, even quadruple their sales by becoming master marketers and communicators. Join me in welcoming Hal Coleman.
Well, I appreciate being invited here. I do want to tell you a little story. I'm going to talk about my descendants, but I was in the cemetery looking for a relative's grave the other day, and I saw this old man over there by a tombstone. He was kneeling down on one knee. Had tears just rolling down his face, and he was talking to the person in the grave. And I moved a little closer where I could hear him, and he said, "Why did you have to die?" He said, "My life was perfect. I woke up every day with a smile on my face. And then you died, and after that, everything turned bad." He said, "Now I'm miserable." He said, "My life is hell." And he said, "I don't even want to wake up every day." And I moved a little closer. I said, "Excuse me, sir, who died?" And he looked up and he said, "My wife's first husband." You just never know. But anyway, thank you for letting me. I looked at the program to see what I'm supposed to speak about today, and it said Old Roswell. So my family, the Coleman family, is about as old to Roswell as you can get. the patriarch of our family was a guy named Valentine Coleman, who actually moved here from South Carolina. His father, Richard Coleman, was from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. They migrated down to South Carolina, and then they moved here. But they didn't move to Roswell because there was no Roswell. They settled on Cherokee Indian land. The Indians had just been displaced to Oklahoma, and the government was giving out permits to settle on Cherokee Indian land. So that's where they settled. And they actually settled, if you leave this building and you drive out of the park, right across the street is where they settled. And their original home place, now Valentine, we call him the father of the Colemans because he's the one that really came here and established the family here, had a house over here on a hill, and which stayed there until the late 50s. It kind of finally rotted away. And I asked my cousin, Phil Mathis, you know, some of y'all might know that's kind of the dark side of the family. But and we were talking about it one day, and our grandfather, we called him Dad. His name was Ed Coleman, but we all called him Dad. That was before people called their fathers Dad. Back in those days, they called him Daddy. You know, but anyway, we called our grandfather Dad, and he said, there's a lake back over here that Tom Price actually lives on, and that was called Honey's Lake because Mr. Honey owned about 80 acres over here. He had this lake built back in the 40s. And he said, you know, when I was a kid, I was over there fishing with Dad, and Dad said, don't ramble around. There's an old house up there. He said that was Valentine Coleman's old house. It was already kind of falling in. He said, don't be playing around that old house up there because you get hurt. That thing's falling in. But he said that was our patriarch's house. And he said, as near as I could figure, it sat almost exactly where Tom Price's house is. So you're sitting on a historic landmark.
You're welcome anytime.
Yeah, thank you. But they moved here, and according to the records that we've been able to cipher through, about between 1834 and 1836 is when they settled here. And Coleman Road, North Coleman Road, Coleman Street, Coleman Drive, Coleman Circle, all that's our family. And they own thousands of acres. And how the hell I ended up with a quarter acre, I don't know. That's just the way it goes, I guess. Somehow it trickled down, it trickled out before it got to me. But they lived here. Valentine married a lady named Nancy Campbell in 1836. But we are reasonably sure, it can't be absolutely proven, but you know, family stories, that she was a Cherokee Indian, but she changed her name to Campbell to keep from being deported to Oklahoma, and she got away with that, I guess. But so they lived here. He had 8 children, and those 8 children had children, and apparently the Colemans are highly fertile people. And my grandfather, Ed Coleman, was from the family. There was 9 boys in the family. All of them had a lot of kids. So that's why people say, why are there so many Colemans around here? Because they just had, back then, those days, you know, they had a lot of kids. So I grew up here, my generations of us, right on this street corner of Woodstock Street and Campbell Street. And I tell people, we've been here so long that we kind of considered Roswell King an interloper. But came here and, you know, have you heard about that guy who wants to form a town here? Think what that'll do to traffic. But so growing up here, there are a lot of stories. And I grew up quail hunting and rabbit hunting all where this building is right now, up and down the creek that flows. That's called Hogwaller Creek, and I just, you know, all over Roswell. I'll tell you a little story, because I grew up on Canton Street, right around the corner down here. So did my dad. Actually, I think he spent part of his childhood right. You go out of this driveway to the right, and you go over a little hill, and you go down the hill, and at the bottom there's a partial brick house that kind of sits off the road with the barn behind it. And that's where my grandmother lived, and I think that's where my dad lived in the real early days. But to show you how much Roswell has changed just in my lifetime, when I was now my grandparents lived over there on where Hobo's High Rise is, over here at the corner. I'll explain that name to you later, but they lived right there on the corner. And I was about 14 years old, and I was at my grandmother's house, and my cousin lived next door, cousin Kenny, and we decided we were going to go squirrel hunting. So we got our .22 rifles, and they had a little basement area we were messing around in, and I look out the basement door, and I was just, right around up here near the intersection. And I saw this, they had a big thicket down behind their house of privet where they used to raise hogs down there. And I saw this squirrel sitting up in a walnut tree, and I said, well, there's the first squirrel of the day. So I kind of prop up on the basement door, and I'm taking a bead on this squirrel, and all of a sudden I hear a .22 rifle from over on the other side, and the squirrel falls out of the tree. And somebody just shot my squirrel. So I go running around there, and it's two buddies of mine. It's Al Hester and Larry McCord. They were out there squirrel hunting with their rifle. Larry had a 20 gauge single shot shotgun, and Al had a .22 pump, and I said, you shot my squirrel. He said, well, we're squirrel hunting. I said, well, let's just go together. So we set out on this, what I call the epic squirrel hunt of 1964, okay? We go down behind North Coleman Road, which it was a dirt road back then, part of it. We go down what used to be Roswell Seeding Company. You have to have been here a long time to know where Roswell Seeding Company was, at the intersection of Pine Grove and North Coleman. Nancy Trail, which was off Thompson Place, which wasn't here then. A lot of woods, so we squirrel hunt, and we got so many squirrels, we can't carry them. So we found an old deserted house, and we went in there just, looking around. I mean, what kid can resist a deserted house? We found an old lamp in there, and we cut the lamp cord off of it and made loops in it, and we tied them around the necks of these squirrels. So we had about 10 squirrels on this thing, and one guy threw them over his shoulder. So now we're shooting more squirrels, and we ate the squirrels back then. I still do. It's one of my favorite meals. So we come out of the woods down near where the Methodist Church is. We come up Canton Street, and we get to Stribling's drugstore, which is it's right across the street from Green Brothers Electric Company. And probably y'all don't know where that is, but it's right in the middle of Canton Street, drugstore there. Dr. Ezzard, who was the town doctor, his office was in the back. And a little trivia, any boxing fans in here? You ever heard of the boxer Ezzard Charles? He was named after Dr. Ezzard because Dr. Ezzard delivered him. So we go into the drugstore. By then we had 18 squirrels tied to the lamp cord. We go in, we pile the squirrels up on the floor, we prop all our rifles and shotguns up against the wall. We get up on the stool, and bars that has like stools in there, and we order snow cones. So the Miss Stribling, the pharmacist, went nuts over the squirrel. Went and got Dr. Ezzard to come out and see all the squirrels. Oh man, because everybody, that was just food. And we ate our snow cones, and then between there and back to the intersection up here where the high rise is, we got about 5 or 6 more squirrels. So by the time we got to the intersection, I think we had like 26 squirrels. And the police stopped us when we were coming up Canton Street. Here we are, 4 guys with heavily armed and all of these dead squirrels on a rope, on a lamp cord. Man, where did y'all get all those squirrels? They said, oh, we've been shooting them all over Roswell. I said, well, y'all be careful and don't shoot toward any houses. Okay. We won't. And, but that just to show you how much it's changed. You let 4 teenage boys walk down Canton Street today with rifles and shotguns. you're not going home. Walk into a drugstore today with rifles and shotguns and 18 dead animals tied on a lamp cord, you're not going home. You're leaving the drugstore, but I call that hobo's high rise. Now I want to give you the background there. Up through World War II, through the 30s and 40s, there was a gentleman named Virgil Garrett, who was one of the former mayors of Roswell, had a little grocery store down there. And after the war, he retired. He sold it to my uncle, Lamar Coleman. Now, everybody called Lamar Hobo. He got that name, they say, because when he was a little bitty infant, they had him wrapped in swaddling clothes, you know, and had this big hood on him and all these oversized clothes, and they showed him to his uncle. He said, he just looks like a little hobo. So that name stuck. So it was Hobo's service station. It was a Sinclair oil station. It became so popular that, anybody ever heard of the Big Chicken in Marietta? Okay. Well, back in those days, if you were going anywhere in North Georgia, anywhere north of Macon, Georgia, and somebody asked you how to get anywhere, they would either say, well, you know where the Big Chicken is? Or they would say, well, you know where Hobo's is? Because they had to get a reference point. If you knew where the Big Chicken was or Hobo's, then they could tell you how to get anywhere. But that's where you had to start from, one of those two places. So he ran that service station for, I think, about 26 years. And he eventually died from cancer, and somebody else bought the service station. Just, you know, it didn't last long after that because it wasn't Hobo's anymore. But they had a little wash rack and a little grease rack, and they sold, you know, some automotive supplies. They sold, buy a loaf of bread, you could buy candy, you could buy live fish bait, minnows, worms, you could buy used shotguns, rifles, ammunition, and condoms. That's one thing you could buy there too. And you could also buy bootleg whiskey. So that's one of the reasons it was such a great hangout. But if anybody, I remember they had a guy that worked there. His name was Jimmy Lawson, and he worked there for quite a few years. Started working there when he was about 12 years old, and he got up to about 18 years old. He's going to get married, and the word got out, Jimmy Lawson's getting married, you know. So Hobo, who's always a real prankster, wrapped a package about this big, really nice wrapping paper, and said Jimmy Lawson for a wedding present. And they put it in there up on top of a shelf months before he was going to get married. So the curiosity factor kicked in, and everybody was trying to guess what was in that package that he was giving Jimmy Lawson, who was getting married. People wanted to know if they could lift it. No, you can't touch it. So the day before his wedding, it was kind of a little gathering. Jimmy Lawson opens this big package, you know, and everybody's standing around and just opens it. Newspapers, tears all the way through this package. It gets all the way down and comes out with a pack of condoms. So it was like, what a letdown. It was funny too. But anyway, Hobo's was a great place. All the local ministers hung out there, and they could stop by there, and they would just be one of the gang. You know, you could, people would tell them dirty jokes and everything else. But anyway, after he died, eventually that place was torn down, and Vickers Automotive was there. Some of y'all might remember Vickers Automotive. And it was there for many, many years until finally that property sold. And they built that 5-story structure on the corner, which we all locals call it Hobo's High Rise. That's what we call it. But, and I'm not sure of the time here, so I told them when they asked me, I said, he said, how long do you speak? I said, I speak until somebody holds up 2 fingers. So when I'm about 2 minutes away from the end, somebody holds up 2 fingers, okay? But growing up on Canton Street was a real trip. some of the memories I have, other than, you know, being able to come home from school and just throw my books down, turn my dogs loose, fill my pockets up with shotgun shells, and head out through the neighborhood, you know, and come home with quail and all kind of game. We were big hunters, and a lot of ponds that we fished in around here. But I remember during the Cuban Missile Crisis, when I was in the, I guess, the 7th grade, and we all had to walk home from school one day. Didn't matter where you lived. I didn't ride the bus, I walked, because it was like 1.2 miles to the school, and after I got old enough, I rode my bicycle to school, but I never rode the bus. Not enough adventure on the bus. But on this particular day, everybody had to walk home. And it didn't matter if you lived, we had people that lived down on Azalea Drive, down on Chattahoochee River, but Azalea Drive's been built up a lot now. It used to be a dirt road, and it sat down a lot lower, and anytime there was any kind of bad rains, it was flooded, so the school bus would stop at the end of Azalea Drive, and there was one dad down there who had a boat, and would pick up the kids that lived on Azalea Drive in the boat and take them up to the bus stop near the Highway 9. But it doesn't do that much anymore. But on this particular day, it didn't matter where you lived. You had to walk home, and you had to call the school. Your parents had to write down the exact time you got home. Then they worked it out where, okay, it took you this long to get home. See, this was in case we had because what my 5th grade teacher, bless her heart, she was very comforting. She said, none of this matters, because if they start firing atomic bombs, Dobbins Air Force Base is going to be one of the places they're going to aim at. And she said, all this area will just be disintegrated anyway. Thank you. But so they designated you a place to hide if you couldn't make it home in time. So my designated hiding place was, I don't know how to describe this to you on Camp Street. You know where Tom Campbell's office used to be? Okay, there's a culvert that went under the road right there. It was a pretty big culvert. So myself and 2 of the neighborhood girls, Karen and Audrine, the 3 of us were designated to hide in that culvert pipe if something happened. So I remember we used to kind of test that out, you know. Let's crawl up in the culvert pipe, you know, and we had it all imagined. What if we had to stay in this culvert pipe for a month? I mean, we, you know, kids. So, but that's the thought processes back then. There were 2 Roswells back then, not one. There were 2. There was Upper Roswell, which is Canton Street, and there was Lower Roswell, which is down by the square. And on Canton Street, there were 2 pharmacies. So there was the Roswell picture show theater, and there was a pharmacy on each side of it. There was Stribling's drugstore and Staples drugstore. I never understood that. But why, you only have 2 pharmacies right there. And then you had a pharmacy down on the square. You had a barber shop on Canton Street. You had a barber shop down on the square. You had a furniture store here at Canton Street. You had a furniture store down on the square. So it was just 2 separate Roswells. And when I was a kid, if you went down Canton Street and you went all the way down, headed toward the square, the road didn't go all the way through. It ended at Oak Street, and the rest of it was just woods. And so it was back in the late 50s they eventually cut the road through. But my dad, who lived here on Canton Street, used to tell me stories about the moonshining days. And back then, you know, a lot of cars didn't have mufflers on them. They were loud, and they'd sit out on the porch at night down here on Camp Street. And he said you could hear the revenuers. He'd say you could hear revenuers when they jumped a moonshiner up in Alpharetta. He said you could hear them all the way up to Alpharetta coming down Highway 9. And he was listening. Say, come here, come here. They're chasing somebody. You'd hear them come all the way down Highway 9, and when they got to Magnolia Street, they had to turn right on Magnolia Street, then left on Mimosa Boulevard, because the road didn't go through. Where Mimosa Boulevard dead ends into Highway 120, Marietta Highway, they would turn. And if they ever made that turn, they were history, because it was all downhill, and they went right into Cobb County, and they always got away. But he said, only half of them got away, because he said you'd be listening for them. And what you were listening for was when they got to the end of Mimosa Boulevard, because he said they'd be doing about 90 miles an hour when they got to the end of Mimosa Boulevard. And you'd be listening, and you would either hear, you know, you hear them going, or either you hear, oh, they didn't make it. They didn't make it over the Highway 9. So that was the excitement back in those days, you know, was, listening to the revenuers chase the moonshiners through Roswell. But my dad went to Roswell Elementary School. I went to Roswell Elementary School. My kids went to Roswell Elementary School. And so, you know, a lot of history here. So I know we don't have a lot of time left. So what I'd like to do is just ask y'all if you have any questions for me.
My favorite story that you told is about when your uncle was passing away, what his favorite day was. Remember what you were talking about years ago?
No.
If you can. Why are we in Fulton County now, and we weren't Fulton County in the 30s? Something to do with power.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about. That wasn't my uncle, but that was my dad's best friend.
Oh, okay.
Ralph Dempsey, who also grew up here in this town, but after the war, he moved to Marietta. But he and my dad were best friends growing up, and hobo too. They all were buddies, and they hunted together. But after my dad passed away, because I'd known Ralph all my life, Ralph kind of became my dad after that. We talked on the phone, you know, at least twice a week at night. He was on up in his 80s, but I'd take him fishing. I got a little boat that used to belong to Hobo, and I still have that little boat, and I'd pick up Ralph and we'd go fishing. And we were fishing one day over at Horseshoe Bend subdivision. We got permission to fish in that lake, and we're sitting there, and I just happened to be watching an airliner going over, and I was thinking, and Ralph and I were kind of talking about the past, and I said, Ralph, you know, you've seen a lot of technology in your era, maybe more than any time in history. You remember the Wright brothers, who, you know, you came along. I think he was born in like 1917, and I said, you saw automobiles take place, and I said, you saw men land on the moon. And I said, it's pretty incredible to go from the Wright brothers to a moon landing in your lifetime. And he said, you know, you're right. He said, and I've thought a lot about that. And he said, all the things I've seen in my life, and he said, I think the one thing that I saw in my life that just blew me away more than anything else was the night Roswell got electricity. I said, really? He said, oh yeah. He said, we were sitting on that, he said, me and some other guys went and sat on that road bank across from Miss Fowler's house. Now, I don't even remember where Miss Fowler's house was, but it was down at Canton Street. And, because there was nothing else. There was Canton Street and the square. Everything else was out in the country. And he said they had wired up some stores and some street lights. And he said, we went over there about 4 o'clock in the afternoon to wait for it to get dark. And he said it got dark and nobody knew what to expect. And he said all of a sudden it's like, bing. Wow. The nozzle just lit up. And he said, I almost passed out. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty cool story.
Yeah.
And, but the night Roswell got electricity. And so, you know, here again, growing up in Roswell, it's not like it used to be. And everywhere you go, they say it's not like it used to be. But it's been a great place for me, a great place to raise a family.
Tell them about the road they cut through the cemetery right down here.
Oh, the road Coleman family.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go down to the, where the 140, I guess, ends into Highway 9, where the cemetery is that go, my family, a lot of my ancestors, Valentine Coleman, that's my great-great-grandfather, his wife, his kids, my great-great-uncle, buried right there. There's a little bench there, and it says Valentine Coleman. It sits right on the side of the road. You can look for it and go by.
Yeah.
But the little caveat to that is about, I'm going to say 40 years ago.
Hey, Rick. You got it. You're good.
Time of that, maybe 40 years ago, they had to widen that road. So they actually
Well, it was for a moment.
kind of just moved the headstones over. So actually, I think Valentine is actually under the westbound lane of that road. They're over there somewhere. We don't know exactly where they are. But the gravestone is nice, and it's our family marker, so you can check it out sometime when you go by there.
Hal, thank you so much for being with us today. We have an appreciation certificate for you for coming and being our speaker. So we thank you so much for being here. And we've got another gift.
You want to smile, Stacy?
Yeah, we're going to take a picture. You guys
Here we go.
Thank you.
I wasn't done yet, so let me, that's all. I forgot to plan ahead.
I did too. There.
We'd like to give our speakers a $2 bill in appreciation, not because of the value of $2 bills, but because it's the only legal currency in the U.S. that shows the Declaration of Independence and our founders signing it.
That's all.
So it's just very appropriate for our chapter, and so we want you to have that to remember us as well. And, you know, history is something to be told by each of us, and so we appreciate you coming and sharing what you know.
I appreciate it very much.
We'll move now into some of our committee reports. I'll ask our Veterans Chairman, Rob Uppert, to come up and share his update with us because he's got, like so many of us, he has another responsibility this morning in the community, and so we want to get Rob out the door in plenty of time.
Very good. Thanks, Steve. Short and sweet today. We finished 2022 with our start points totaling 8,006. So another banner year for the chapter. Last year, 2021, was our record year, and we were right knocking on the door last year from our record year. So 2 banner years. I expect we'll probably put another add to our collection here this year. I think we certainly exceeded all expectations, and it's thanks to you. Thanks for all your help and participation. We did things like help the women veterans through the VA hospital. We certainly supported our brethren that left us this year, and thank you so much for all of you paying your respects at that time. All those things contribute to supporting the veterans in the Stark Report, so I appreciate your assistance. Thank you.
Our Secretary's report was distributed electronically. Were there any questions, if you had a chance to review that, about the report Eric published for us? If not, then our membership report was also distributed electronically. Glenn, any updates for us about numbers?
No, nothing happened this week.
Okay. Rick, did you have some updates about some things that you're sharing with new members?
Yes. What we began to do was give each of the new members 10 SAR business cards, which we'll give to you at your induction, and then also have a trifold handout that has some jargon about the SAR and some of the things that we do to give you an idea of what the chapter's activities are. And then ask you, on the other hand, to fill out a biography form for us so we get to know a little bit more about you and how you can be a participating member in the chapter with some of the activities that we do have. So that's what we began a little while ago. And as you get in, hopefully we'll have that all for you.
You know, I appreciate particularly that trifold brochure going in there to tell new members a little bit more about the chapter. As I was sharing with Jeff earlier this morning, when I joined, my thought was, okay, it was a one and done process. I filled out my application, I'm a member, history's done, just sit back and, watch things happen, right? Didn't have a real good appreciation for what to happen. I have gotten so much out of being a member of this chapter. I've gotten so much out of being involved with many of you in many of the activities. But as I became more aware of the things we're involved in the community, it's truly an enriching experience. And so doing something else besides attending the Saturday morning meeting is what we're really about. And so we would appreciate everyone's involvement, new and old members. So thank you. Treasurer's report. Hal, any updates for us?
Yeah. As some of you might know, Joe Nichols resigned, and so Ron and I have been picking up the pieces. And so this morning, I went in and I have access to our checking account. We have $12,135 in our checking account. Some of that's allocated to educational funds, which is our outreach, which is what Stacy is talking about. Is my first wife was basically a teacher, and you sit there and you say, I wish we were teaching things that you and I, going back to how we learned, as kids growing up, whether you were here in Roswell or wherever, the educational outreaches, they just don't teach history anymore. And so part of our educational funds are included in this $12,000. So, we have members that they can't physically do some of the things, but they give us money for the educational kinds of program that Stacy has handled in the year. So we're doing a pretty good job as a chapter in terms of our outreach. So education is a big part of that, and that's why we're trying to find what your interest is. We sponsor, like Jamie does the Eagle Scouts. Bob Sapp and I got invited back. We screwed up, okay? And we were invited back for a second presentation. If some of you are interested in that, February 3rd, 5:30 I think it is, or 6:30, Bob and I are going to be presenting an Eagle Scout Award. Please join us just to see what happens to these individuals. And as a result of that, we found one of our Eagle Scouts got nominated for an honor at the Naval Academy. And so you see these kids growing up and the kind of character and background that our ancestor gave us. So yeah, so we're doing okay. You can contribute some money if you would like to. Tax season is in place, and so please join us as we continue our progress. Yes.
Well, I'm holding up a 2-minute finger.
No, I won't do that.
Everybody's a comedian.
Tom, you know what that is? I don't care enough to send the very best.
I think at one of our upcoming meetings, I would like us to have a little bit of discussion around kind of how we work a little bit as a chapter. And we'll spend a little bit of time talking about our budget for the year, what we use our money on, and where we need help and support. Not just in monetary help and support, but in terms of where you can be involved. I would like Ron Redner and Rob to talk a little bit about some of the things that we do for our Americanism work, our Stark report, what are the things that feed into those that help us get recognized at the state and national level? Now, many of you are very experienced in the chapter and know those things. We have newer members who may not be. How do those things count towards the activities that we do and recognition that we can gain as an organization so that we can continue to reach out into the community? And so we'll talk a little bit more, maybe at some of the details about those in upcoming meetings.
Stacy, if I may?
Yes.
Real quick, we made a flyer a couple of years ago with the subject, how can I help the SAR? And it goes into time, talent, and treasure, ways that we can contribute as members. And if okay with you, I'll ask Rick to send that back out. And it is specifically areas that we can get points for on those Americanism.
Was that the one you left at the library?
Yep. Yep.
And don't hear us wrong, we're not about getting points for our internal recognition, but it's a way of reflecting back the work that we do in the community and letting others see it. And frankly, when you see other chapters and the activities they're doing through those reports, it helps feed and fuel activity back into the community. So it's a good thing. Jamie, how about an Eagle Scout update?
Well, Al gave half of my report, but
sorry about that.
You're good. I just want to mention real quick how it works. So on the Eagle Scouts, when they get to their court of honor, they present to review board what their project was, and it's reviewed, it's vetted. It's really the last stage. If they've gotten to that part, they're going to be an Eagle Scout. But that night, they get their award and they become an Eagle Scout at that. Later, a lot of them have a court of honor where they invite family and troop members to kind of celebrate that and spend an hour rah-rah for the kid that made Eagle. The night that they're handed their award, the night they make it, the district scoutmaster, I think he's called, for the scouts, hands them a flyer from us that says, hey, at your court of honor, if you'd like to have the SAR present a recognition to you, just fill this out and send it to me. And it's got a picture of Rick Reese handing a certificate to a boy on the bottom of it. So that's our advertising. And then we get these requests. And that's why when you see those emails come out from me, I'm asking for help. There's another date that we've been asked to present. So Al and Bob are going to present these two Friday week, I think.
Yeah.
And then I've got another one, February 25, that I need to volunteer for. If you want to sign up for it today, let me know after. Send me an email. But we've done one so far this year. We've mailed out a couple. And last year, one of the boys that we presented to entered our contest. There's a contest every year where the scout has to show 4 generations of his ancestors and write an essay. And we got one entry, so that's our winner. He wrote about Federalist Paper number 10. It talks about dealing with majority and minority factions, and really important document. And he did a good job. So we're going to present him with an award for that and a check at our banquet next month. And I just want to reiterate that call. If you'd like to get involved in this, it's one of the coolest things we do.
Or even a tag along for new people to check it out.
You bet.
That's why I said, come along, just watch SAP and I. You don't have to be involved or do anything, just observe so that you can understand what we do each time we do this. And there's tell them about the National Scholarship.
Oh yeah, if you win at the chapter, you could be entered in the state contest. There's a check there. It gets pretty significant. I think it's $600 or something like that. And then the top national prize is $10,000. And one of our dual members is involved in the National Eagle Scout effort, Ed Regal. But it's a good effort. That's long enough.
You also get invited to receive that at Congress.
That's right.
So I wanted to point out too, Rick, you talked about the business cards. I was approached after an Eagle Scout presentation, somebody who wanted to join, and I just had to kind of pull up on my phone the website and kind of send them to the chapter to get in touch with Glenn and so forth. But I didn't have any other way to do that, so that's a good idea. even for existing members, we should try to get some too, if you're gonna do an Eagle Scout award, because one of the.
Right, and that-
They did come up to me afterward.
On the back of the card are all of our websites, so that anybody with that
That would've been a
card
lot
knows
easier
how
than
to
what I did, so.
get the national as well as down to the chapter websites.
Yeah. And one of the kids last year was British, which was a lot of fun. I got to have a little fun with that during our presentation.
The other thing about the Eagle Scout presentation, if you're unsure what to say,
Yeah, don't worry about that.
we have a script that you can use, or, and I've done it so many times, it just comes out of my head anymore. But I get a lot of feedback from the audience who was there, asking about the SAR, and I talk a little bit about that. But I've gotten referrals to do traveling trunk programs in various schools as a result of that. So we get ourselves out in the community a lot more by being in those events.
Well, speaking about the community and our education committee update, won't recover everything that's in black on these slides, but some updates. We did in early December get 9 posters submitted by Soap Creek Elementary School, and now we need to go forward and do the judging for those. And so if you are interested in helping me judge, in this case for Soap Creek, we don't even have to go to the school. I've got the posters. So we can, let me know if you would be interested in reviewing those posters with me. As the committee chairperson, I don't want to do the judging myself, so I could use 3 volunteers to help me. Reach out to me either today or by email. We expect to get, for the middle school brochure contest, we expect to get probably 90+ brochures submitted by Fellowship Christian School here in the next 2 weeks. So in mid-February, I will also need 3 judges for that. I was sharing with someone before the meeting today, that contest in particular is a lot of fun. You don't really, everyone doesn't have to look at 90. We do a call process. You can kind of put them into a, we need to review this more pile versus probably not going to be a winner pile. So in the end, we need to do detailed reviews on about 15 brochures or so. But if you're interested in helping me do that, reach out to me. I would appreciate your help. That'll be coming up here in mid-February. Again, we'll have possession of those. We don't have to go to the school to do the judging. We'll move the brochures around at your convenience to participate in that process. So your help is needed. And it's a good way to see some of these brochures are really awesome. They really are. And then lastly, we learned about a week or so ago that our chapter winner from Fellowship Christian School in the essay contest, Maddox Lewis, did not place this year in the state competition. Doesn't take away at all from the work that Maddox has continued to do for those of you who have not been with us as long. Maddox was a winner in the brochure contest, first place in state, and when he was in the 8th grade, first place in our chapters, first place in the state, and I believe he won 2nd place in the national competition as an 8th grader. Last year, as a 9th grader, he was our first place winner. He was the first place winner in the state for the essay contest. He did not place at national. And this year, there are more chapters. Thank goodness. I'm glad there are more chapters in the state of Georgia who had entries participating. And so the competition was much more difficult this year, so he did not place. But on February 15th, we will meet at Fellowship Christian School. Many of you have been involved with me there in the past. So we will meet there in uniform, in coat and tie, or just come as you are. Having a presence of members of the chapter as we present Maddox with his check and with his certificate and his medal, as well as the 2nd place winner. That's a lot of fun. And besides, that will be in a high school assembly, and so there will be probably, I'll call it 150 plus students there that we will get exposed to some of the work that the SAR does. So, we'll get some communication out about that and your ability to participate. But I need 3 judges for posters. I need 3 judges for brochures. Anyone willing to participate, reach out to me. All right, old business. Mr. Benton, would you like to talk to us a little bit about
Sure.
color guard?
And I'll just stay back here because it's easy enough to not have to move. So I saw this agenda when Rick sent it out, this came out when Rick sent it out, and I've kind of become like sort of the color guard recruitment guy for our chapter. John was kind enough to just say, yeah, go ahead and take care of that. So I'll do that. John's the color guard commander. I'm just sort of the guy that wants to get everybody involved because I enjoy this stuff a lot, as you can tell. I wanted to talk about some of this stuff. So Ron's always looking for Americanism points. Everything you do on color guard counts as Americanism points, right? So anything you go do, you do that. Some of the other things that I wanted to talk about as far as and a lot of you guys have heard this before, so this is new stuff. But what I did here today was that we have a lot of new members and some prospective members and folks that haven't gotten their things taken care of yet and so forth. So if you're interested, this is one of the ways you can give back. I work all day. I can't do anything during the day, during the week. So what I try to do is help out at night and on the weekends with what I can do. So there's always things that can be done. The Eagle Scouting thing that Jamie just talked about, I heard 6:30 p.m. Well, that means that even if it's during the week, it's at night, so I can probably handle that one. But we do Roswell Ramblers and some other things that are during the day, during the week. That's hard for me to do. We've got some members that are taking care of those kinds of things. But we always need more members. Having a bigger pool is always better. I do a lot of state color guard stuff. Since April, I can't remember how many I've done. I've done several events all over the state. I've been in Marietta, Savannah, Hoshton, Demarest, Knoxville, Georgia. If anybody doesn't know where that is, it's 80 miles, about 20 miles west of Macon. And Roberta, Georgia, we did a parade from Knoxville to Roberta back in December for their 200th anniversary celebration. We were second row. There were two little girls holding the sign in front of us, and the color guard was right behind them. We had the state color guard commander to my left, and I was holding the Hopkinson flag, which is the first official colors of the U.S. for that parade. And they told us it was a mile. It was a long mile, but there was a lot of people behind us, so that's why we had to keep going. To get to the end of the parade, we had to keep going around and back all the way back to the square where we started, so they could do it. We had ROTC, the fire department, the police department. It was great. It was a huge parade. It was a lot of fun. So part of this for me is because I enjoy doing this. I'm a history major by training. I love all this kind of stuff. But part of it is I can't do traveling trunk. I can't do some of the other national events that people go to, the national congresses and things like that. I just don't have time to do those kinds of things. So this is what I do and how I give back. As far as the uniform is concerned, there's some pictures up there. You can see there, the bottom right photo, that's me in that light blue vest with the bag and the hat and the pants and all that. That was about $300 total. I have a shirt and a frock coat, which is like the blue coat in the middle picture on the bottom, that John's wearing, that blue frock coat, in my car, free. Stacy's offering a hat up there for free. If anybody's interested in joining, I'll give that to you. Now, you better be a little bigger, because I'm a little bigger, and the reason I'm giving those away is because they were a little too small for me, but they're still pretty big.
And I got a big head, so that wouldn't work. So.
Yeah, his hat was too loose on him too, right? The state and the chapter also have stipends that if you participate in some events, you can apply for those stipends to pay you back for it. So your uniforms effectively can be free, okay? That frock coat and that shirt, if I don't give it away today, and if you're even remotely interested, please see me right after the meeting because I got to bolt out of here for something else I got to get to. It's yours. Next week, if nobody wants it, next week I'm going to be at the state meeting. I'm going to offer it there. If nobody wants it, I'm probably going to throw it in the trash can on the way out the door because I don't need it. I'd love to give somebody to use it because otherwise it's just garbage to me. And it doesn't fit me, so I'm out of it. But
so if you're remotely interested,
even remotely interested, just take it. That if you don't decide not to do it, bring it back and give it to somebody else or something, because I don't want to just throw it away, but I just don't need it anymore. And I had to get the house cleaned out. Some other things to talk about. We have about 10 members in the chapter. We have about 8 members that are active, that are Piedmont Color Guard members. We have 120 members, it says, right? 120, 130 members. I mean, come on, guys. We need a few more folks to do this, to give some of the other guys a break and let them not have to do it. Our active members that we have, and if I miss somebody, I apologize. Stacy's active, John Wassel's active, Ron Redner's active, Jamie Rupp is active, Rick Jr. and Rick III are active, Bob Sapp's active, George Thurman's active. They're all here today, including me. So it's like, okay, guys, let's do some more stuff, right? And Paul, I know you retired, so I didn't say you were active, so I apologize if that offends you, but you were active for many, many, many years, and Stacy has inherited Paul's uniform, so it's still being put to good use. Stacy didn't pay anything for his uniform, I guess, right? So
I had to buy a few accessories, but
okay,
but
not much, right?
Got me started.
I mean, Scott Collins is our state color guard commander. His first coat was donated, and he was like, "Yeah, all right, I'll wear it." and now he's color guard commander. That was only like 4 or 5 years ago that he did that. So I mean, he rose that fast through the ranks. Next year he will be, or this year I guess, he will be national color guard commander, if I'm not mistaken. So he's gonna be busy, okay? Some of the other things to talk about, as a color guard member for Piedmont, you're automatically part of the state color guard, whether you show up for color guard events or not. You just have to basically get on the mailing list, so you're pretty much part of the color guard. One of the things color guard does is the national color guard does is stand guard over Washington's tomb in September. I believe it's the day he passed away. Is the day that we do it. I'm not sure. We get 15 minutes. You stand guard with another member for 15 minutes at Mount Vernon in Washington D.C. We get to do that. So I've been to Mount Vernon before. I've been to the tomb before, but haven't done that. So I'm doing that this year. I'm signing up and going out there to do that this year. So I'm excited about doing that. So I think that'll be interesting and a fun time as well. We have plenty of resources for you to get stuff. There's a PDF called the Well-Dressed Guardsman that has lots of web pages about things. I've got them all bookmarked on my website now. I mean, I have a lot of stuff already, but there's always more things to get, right? So that's easy if you're looking for uniform ideas, militia ideas, things like that. We have plenty of that kind of stuff for you. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was there are, as a color guard member and going to these various events and things, there's 5 medals that I'm working towards. Okay, I already have 2 of them. The 250th celebration is that flag right there. Every event that you attend with one of those flags, you get 3 points. If you're not in uniform, you get 5 points if you are in uniform. I think we got ours in April. That's the first time we posted it. So every chapter meeting that I've been to since April, I think I've been in uniform at most of them. It's 5 points or 3 points. Every color guard event that I go to, somebody's carrying that flag. That's another 5 points for me because I'm in uniform at that event. I've already got the bronze and the silver applied for. I don't have them yet, but I've applied for them. That's 60 points. The gold is another 90, so it's going to be a little time before I get the gold medal, but I'll work towards that as well. The other is Patriot Grade Marking Medal and a Compatriot Grade Marking Medal. I've got 9 Patriot Grade Markings already since April and 2 Compatriot already. I need 15 of each of those to get that medal. So these are all things that you can get by participating in those color guard events. When we go to these grade markings, the family members that are there are absolutely appreciative, like you can't believe. Everybody wants pictures, they all want to hang out, there's DAR folks there, the children are there dressed up, they're having a good time, they really enjoy it, and they really appreciate it. Usually there's a musket salute, that's kind of cool too. They do more muskets, that's kind of cool too. You know, I don't have a musket, so I don't do any of those things. And yes, I'm sweating because this stuff is very hot. But anyway, one last thing I just wanted to add, and I know I'm going on for a long time, but as you can tell, I'm excited about this. You talked about what we do in the chapter and how we do it. At our company, we have developmental goals. Yeah, I see it. On our performance management, right? These are all developmental goals that we need for Ron's Americanism report. So while we want to give points to Ron for Americanism report, that's not what it's about. But think about every little thing you do helps him make his report easy and makes us successful as a chapter overall. And we win streamers and awards for it, but the flagpoles are too heavy to hold all the streamers we have, so we can't have the streamers up these days, but that's what we do. So anyway, that's kind of how I look at it. I've been talking to my staff about that, about thinking about developmental goals, and these are some things that I've been doing, like, hey, I'm gonna get involved, what am I gonna do? The brochure that Jamie's talking about, all the different options that you have, this is just one of them. Anyway, John?
Hey, that frock coat, if anyone wants it, get it, because you can get that altered. I've been looking around in here, and maybe some of you could use it, but some of you could get it altered, but you're gonna get it taken in, so it's gonna be easy to be altered, taken in. And the blouse is inexpensive, and you can wear that at night if you want to. And the hat is expensive, and you've got one up there. And remember, this is the militia outfit, so we're not really formal in the militia outfit. So you can wear pants, you can probably find a pair of pants to wear. Just tie something around the leg and make it look real rough, right?
Your shoes can be a pair of black shoes with
Yeah.
no laces, it's fine. Ron Windsor actually has really good shoes that would probably fit pretty well for the time period that he's wearing, that he didn't buy at any website that I've been to, I can tell you that for sure. So yeah, that's easy to do. This coat, when I got this for Christmas, the sleeves came down to here. I mean, literally, they were down to my knees because it's such a big coat, so I had to have it altered to bring the sleeves up. Done. No problem. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
Now I'm going to take my coat off because I'm sweating.
Let me add to what he had pointed out. 3 of us, actually 4 of us, in the Piedmont chapter, over a period of about 5 years, outdid the activity of the society. One time there were 600 points for the society, and out of the 600 points, 500 was done by the Piedmont chapter. We have been an outstanding chapter in the Colorado. We need to recover that. Unfortunately, Paul, George, and I are getting a little bit on our age to the point where we cannot stand up for very long or participate very long. But we encourage it because basically that's where you meet people, you are known among the society, and you can be known nationally as far as that goes. You get friends all over everywhere by virtue of where you go. So if you want to expand your horizon of friendships and places you go, get into that. I've got a pair of breeches and a waistcoat that is available for anybody who wants to try them on, see if you can take them.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you very much. Before we move into new business, we need to do our monthly drawing to pick up one of those book or CDs there. I'm going to ask Billy if he'll do the drawing for me. Last three numbers. Tim, come up and pick up your book or book on CD of your choice. Book on CD.
They're cheering for you.
I'm going to ask immediate past President Al Figley to come up and lead the next part of the meeting around election of our officers for 2023.
As you heard Bob talk about the award-winning chapter, and nationally, when Al Finley went to Louisville the very first time, I went down for breakfast and I walked in, there were 4 or 5 people there, and somebody said, "Who are you?" And I introduced myself. "Oh, I've heard of the Piedmont chapter. This guy was from Texas." And so, talking about award-winning, we do have a reputation, which is very, very important within this society. And you'll see more people from Piedmont at state meetings and national meetings than anybody else. So I, as the past president, encourage you to do that. And it's an honor to stand up here and basically, as you see in the program, the nominating committee nominated these individuals right in here, if you look at your program, for the various next year's chapter officers. If there is anybody that would like to be sitting here nominating somebody else for that position, those nominations are, I'll take them from the floor. Otherwise, do I hear a motion for someone to make the motion that we accept this?
Second.
Okay, that was moved and seconded. All vote say aye.
Aye.
Gentlemen, your new president, right here.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Well, thank you all for your vote of confidence. We'll talk more certainly at the induction meeting coming up in February, but as I said in my earlier comments today, it's been a pleasure for me since I've been a member of the SAR to get to know many of you. I look forward to the opportunity to expand that even further in the coming year, not just as we meet, but as we work together and accomplish things in our community. So thank you very much. All right, so last thing really on our meeting, we want to talk about some very important things that are coming up on the calendar. There's several references made to our state annual meeting. That's coming up next weekend, so January 27th, 28th, Friday and Saturday. The meeting on Friday is a half-day. This is over at in Gwinnett County, so very accessible, not a lot of driving. If anyone is interested in attending, come on over. Most things, if you want to attend the State Board of Managers meeting, you're certainly welcome. The banquets in the evening do cost, and so those things take money. But if you're interested in attending, see me. Again, after the meeting, I brought a couple of blank forms, and you can certainly mail those in. I can forward an email to you. But if you're interested in attending, you'll learn a lot more about what's going on in the State Society if you're interested. So see me. Next weekend, the meeting is half day on Saturday, on into the evening with a banquet, and it's all day, half day on Friday, all day on Saturday, again with a banquet in the evening. In about 2 weeks, on February 4th, we're having a special called Chapter Board of Managers meeting, Zoom meeting, but just to kind of have a focus on building our budget for this coming year. So just want to remind everyone of that. We'll get something out in writing here for you as a reminder by email. But that's coming up on February 4th, 9 a.m. via Zoom. So we don't have to gather to do that. We want to kind of build out a good working budget for our year. February 10th, the citizenship swearing-in ceremony is coming up at 11 a.m. at the Richard Russell Federal Building. Members of our color guard have in the past gone down and participated in that event. It was suspended for a while because of COVID, but they're now back in business. Rick, if anyone's interested, how does someone become involved?
Well, if you just get in touch with me, one of the conflicts that we have at that point is we have two events going on in Lincolnton, Georgia and Washington, Georgia with the Heroes of the Hornet's Nest on the 10th. That's that Friday, and then the Revolutionary Days in Washington, Georgia. So an awful lot of the color guard will be there. If we can't get anybody for this first INS event, that's fine. I'll let her know. But going forward, there will be a number of them throughout the year, and we have a long history of being there. And as a matter of fact, we were honored as a chapter for our participation over the years and featured in one of their books. So, I would strongly encourage somebody to be there, not necessarily in uniform, but just to represent the chapter if you don't have a uniform. But certainly the uniform is a big draw for a lot of reasons. Typically, there are about 100 to 125 new citizens from all kinds of countries that are there to be officially inducted as a U.S. citizen. And sometimes we go in and present the colors to start the meeting. Other times we're sitting in the jury box and may get an opportunity to talk a little bit about the SAR and what we do. But at the end of the event, we are up in front of the room with all the court personnel first, and then we're there with usually some DAR members. And as the new citizens come in, they've all gotten their paperwork, and they go by shaking hands with everybody, and every single one of them stops to get a picture taken with us in uniform. And God knows where all those pictures are, but they're all over the place, I'm sure. But it's a very rewarding ceremony, and you won't see as many smiling faces any other place I can think of as you will that day.
It's certainly a very worthwhile event. As Rick mentioned, Heroes of the Hornet's Nest is also on February 10th. We have the Kettle Creek Revolutionary Days on February 11th in Washington, Georgia. And then we have our Piedmont Chapter Annual Banquet on Thursday, February 23rd at 6 p.m. So next month, February, we will not have our regular Saturday meeting on the second Saturday, third Saturday. third Saturday. We will be having our banquet in the evening, the only evening time meeting that we have throughout the year. But on Thursday, February 23rd, 6 p.m. at House Restaurant. A mailing will be coming out soon. It'll be $50 per person. You're certainly invited and welcome to bring your significant other with you and encouraged to do so. But the induction of officers will occur there, and it's a good time for us to recognize our chapter for the activities that we've done in the past year. So looking forward to that on February 23rd, and again, you'll get more information coming out about that very soon. And then the NSSAR, the National Society Sons of the American Revolution, the spring leadership meeting is in Louisville, March 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. So if you're interested in participating in that, we can certainly give you more information. Any other items of business we need to lift up to the group this morning? Seeing none. Tim, will you lead us in the SAR recession?
Before we meet again,
Let us remember our obligation to our forefathers who gave us our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, an independent Supreme Court, and a nation of free men.
And we will retire the colors informally here, and then ask Chaplain Steve Morrison if he will provide our benediction.
May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he show you his favor and give you peace. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all so much for being here.
Tom, we found the missing dog.
Oh, wonderful.
I was down some show 2 weeks ago. Good to see some of those guys.